our lead stories.
We will launch a new age. I am innocent. They're coming after me.
Yes, they are.
Going after him. Yes.
It's politics season.
Polly.
It's Latin for many.
Tick.
Now suck your blood. Now suck
Politics.
your blood.
Big news. Everyone's talking about it, Basil. Trump announces his 2024 candidacy against the elite rulers' suggestion. He's doing it.
Who could have seen it coming, Gons? Who could have possibly have seen it coming?
Here he is making the announcement. And I got to say, there's like a lacking of a little bit of an oomph from Trump. There's like a kind of a somber mood.
This was one of the most talked about aspects of his entire presentation there. So
interesting.
We'll play some clips. We'll check in on what everybody's talking about here.
So here,
and we can add our own details.
Here he is announcing his presidency or campaign.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
Real stoic face. He does smile eventually. I think he realizes that he's making a very...
He takes it very seriously. Yeah. He's he was not joking around too much.
No, not at all. He was talking about the seriousness of where they're at and everything. We do have some clips from CNN as it was happening live. And they, in CNN fashion, no surprises here. Dana Bash, Anderson Cooper actually cuts off former President Trump and, starts coming in with their own CNN commentary. And then what Dana Bash says is very interesting in the context of the fact that, she's a anchor and chief political correspondent over at CNN. And just, people have brought it up. We'll just mention it here. She was married to Jeremy Bash, who became the CIA chief of staff and Department of Defense chief of staff under President Barack Obama. So, she's just tied in, she did divorce him eventually, but maybe she didn't like the CIA life. But here she is giving her commentary about the President Trump or former President Trump announcement for 2024.
So far left, I figured they'd never speak to me and I would never speak to them. But our success was so incredible.
You've been listening
never before
to the former president announcing that he is running for president again, rewriting the history, most recently, of the midterm elections. Back with Dana Bash, Caitlin Collins, Alyssa Farah-Griffin joining us as well, CNN presidential historian Tim Naftali.
Rewriting the history.
Any thoughts?
Was there some rewriting of history?
Well, he certainly tried to heed the warnings of those around him. Well, what they really wanted him to do was not make this announcement right now. But given the fact that he rebuffed that in terms of the content of the speech, tried to stay on policy, tried to remind people of the issues that many of the Republican supporters and some independents believed in, and stay away from the grievances. He didn't actually, talk about what went wrong in 2020. He did, no question, mislead in a very, very big way about what happened in 2022.
Well, he actually intimated that China controlled the election.
Oh, well, there's that too. Okay, fair point. Fair point. Thank you for that.
So there you go.
Thank you.
This is not good commentary it's like, I don't know if it's a recording in the background, but he was talking. So, they always have to budge in with their commentary over the actual speech.
They cut him off. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. He kept it fairly mild. I mean, and to a degree, I listened to the whole thing. He had some moments, but for the most part, it was actually a fairly boring speech in at least by the standards.
I was going to say the Trump standard. It was not.
Yeah. He did a couple of the classic Trump things, like I'm not supposed to call him this, and I'm not going to say it. The phrase fake news or stuff like that. He wouldn't directly bring up all the Trumpian stuff. I think it has to do with how the midterms went.
Yeah.
You know, the red wave never quite came to the degree everybody thought it was going to come to. And, you know, this idea behind the sort of Trumpian Republicans versus the non-Trumpian Republicans, and just doesn't look like the Trumpianism came through as victoriously as maybe he had hoped. So it seems like he was making this speech not for the MAGA people, but more for the sort of more straight-laced Republicans. It seemed like he was kind of like, okay, I'm going to keep it fairly mild because I don't want to freak out any, the whole Republican Party. Now, if the MAGA people had swept the field during the midterms, maybe he would have come at it at a different angle. But it seems like, he's playing it pretty safe.
I didn't hear the whole thing, but what the CNN reporters here are at least saying was that, Trump implied that China had really taken control of some of the machines or whatever in the election. Again,
it was, nothing specific. It was kind of the same thing. He was talking about like, our economic situation with China. I started it. Biden copied me on some of the tariffs and the trade war with China. Some might think that maybe they had something to do with the election. I don't know. I'm not saying that. Some might say that.
Okay, so there was sort of
a lot of the sort of Trump. Is kind of the they love doing it, sort of putting words in Trump's mouth. Even though, yes, he probably would say that if he thought he could get away with it.
Yeah.
But he didn't quite say it to the degree they're implying.
It's interesting too, because because the red wave didn't happen, and I suppose the greater sentiment that I'm seeing out there is sort of the general trust of the elections in general. And we didn't take any steps between 2020 and 2022 to really bolster the confidence of the people that may be skeptical about how this whole thing operates. So, and not being conspiracy theorists, I'm just, saying that, hey, in that regard,
referring to a well-known group of people.
Right. So in that regard, is Trump playing from behind? Is he behind on the tech? Like why isn't he able to, why wasn't the red wave as big? Why wasn't it a tsunami? Why was it just a puddle?
I've been listening to a lot of analysis about this, and I really don't want to bore everybody with sort of a repeat of the analyses that I've been hearing. But it basically boils down to, Trumpian Republicans versus mainstream Republicans.
They're eating themselves alive kind of thing.
Kind of. Yeah. It seems like, the Republicans in the past, especially during the Trump era, the Republicans relied on conservative leaning independents. And it seems like the independents are a bit more split than they have been in the past. So, a lot of people blame it on the stop the steal, election denial, stuff like this. And that probably has a lot to do with it. It's just he's not as universally sort of energizing like he was in 2016.
He doesn't seem to have the galvanizing momentum that he did in 2016, where it was really, everybody, a lot of fed up people.
The biggest problem in 2020 was that he lost the support of the elites.
Yeah.
He lost the support of the, even his mainstream media allies. He lost the support of, the real kingmakers of the Republican Party in 2020. And that's kind of where he's operating from. He's kind of going back to the sort of outsider position that he was in 2016, which, he kind of lost that stance as a real outsider by 2020. So some people are hoping if he returns to the outsider status of 2016, maybe he can find some success. But, that is honestly putting the cart way before the horse, because right now, his biggest issue is winning the actual Republican primary. And although he does have his full mechanism, his campaign mechanism in place, he's already got his team, he's got his CPAC together, he's got his funding, he's got the Trump email list, he's got a lot of the things already in motion that it takes to actually run a campaign. Whereas you see like Ron DeSantis, yeah, he's kind of playing with the idea, and people are playing with the idea of a DeSantis run, but he does not have the mechanisms in place. He doesn't have a CPAC. He doesn't have his team together. His previous team that actually got him elected in his current post, a lot of them were Trump people, and those Trump people are now on Trump's team. So for instance, he doesn't have access to his previous campaign manager because why? Because she's working for Trump now. So, there's a long road ahead, and we're not necessarily like a politics sports show. So, we won't have, I personally don't have much to add to the conversation, but these are kind of the things that the real politics nerds are talking about.
Who has an opinion and has to put in the last word is Dana Bash.
When you look at history, there is no precedent for this kind of candidate, this kind of candidacy, given what happened after the 2020 election. There's no precedent for it, because what we saw was a president actively undermining democracy. What we have seen since then is him continue to do that. And what we saw last Tuesday was a repudiation of that election denialism. And here he is trying to run again. There is absolutely no precedent, nor should there be.
Yeah,
I don't know how consequential that is.
Good analysis,
again,
Dana.
There's a premise, and then just comment on whatever based on that premise. Titus Wilson on Twitter did mention this at a screenshot of a timeanddate.com, and basically outlined this theory about the last day of Trump in office being January 19th, 2021. The number of days until his announcement on November 15th is 666 days.
Whoa.
But here's the thing. And look, close enough. But, Snopes here does say, we're going to Snopes, mainstream outlet. Snopes suggests that the presidency term ends at noon on January 20th. So technically, today is the 666th day since January 20th, 2021. So, it's a day off in the theory, but, it's sort of, whatever.
It's funny. That's how most of these 666 day countings go. There's usually like a day or two that you kind of got to finagle the narrative to fit it in there.
It's close enough.
I think it's close enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's close enough.
And Dana Bash.
What is the suggestion that Trump is the Antichrist?
Well, there's a race for the Antichrist throne, apparently. But, Dana
true.
Bash did say against their wishes, I don't know who, the Republican Council or something.
Yeah.
But
yeah, she's talking about this was another big, politics nerd talking point. A lot of people wanted Trump to wait to announce until after something. What was it? Oh, nuts. I should have written this down. I didn't know we were going to be going into
it's
it.
Okay. It's not a big deal,
the sort of Republican elite mechanism wanted him to wait to announce. But the problem was, in regards to any other Republican running against Trump, if anybody was going to run against Trump, they would have had to announce before Trump announced.
Right, yeah.
Because that way you can kind of pull it off. Yeah,
you're getting ahead of it.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't know he was going to run. I'm not anti-Trump. And then, because you need.
Now it's, you're saying
believe it or not, as much as CNN likes to think Trump is the boss of the Republican Party, he's not, but he does still holds a lot of sway.
Sure. So you're suggesting DeSantis run in 2024 is less likely because of little details like that about how Trump got in front.
It presents an obstacle for anyone else to say they're going to run.
Sure.
And that's why he was going to do it. There was speaking of Twitter, maybe I should pull it up. There was a Twitter person who is sort of known for making kind of like predictions, kind of like spookily, accurate predictions. I need to pull them up. I forgot the name, but they said that a big announcement on the 18th of November will have large ramifications for whatever, for a popular candidate or whatever. And people were noting that Trump was going to announce this today. And this was like months ago. The prediction was made.
November 18th.
Noting that Trump was going to announce today. But yeah, so on the 18th, 3 days after Trump's announcement, perhaps, whatever, maybe he gets indicted, maybe
it's a Friday.
Some big thing
November 18th
comes
is the
him.
322nd day of the year. So it's 322. So, the occultists have something to say about that. So real quick, just,
what? The numbers always line up.
I know.
Like that,
speaking of numbers, I did mention on Twitter that somebody, Jenna Ellis, I don't know who she is, somebody on Twitter, said that, the quoted President Trump or, former President Trump announcing his candidacy for 2024. And it signs off 45 and 47. 45 being, he's president number 45. And then if he gets in 2024, he'd be president number 47. If you just collapse those numbers, 4 plus 5 is 9 and 4 plus 7 is 11. So you got 9/11. There you go. Trump's presidency is 9/11. 9/11, man.
Wow. All the numbers are showing
Beware,
up.
666 and 9/11. They got all the numbers ready to go for Mr. Trump.
Yeah, well, good.